What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So over the weekend, there was a lot of talk around the Steam Deck and Valve's targeted performance apparently being 30 frames per second. Well, now in a new statement, Valve has at least clarified what they meant there, and they even talked about some of the comparisons that are now being drawn between the Steam Deck and the Switch. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about what looks like another game that's leaked out early for the Switch, and it's a game that makes sense, but it is starting to make people wonder if there is, yes, some sort of Nintendo event coming up to start revealing these different games. And we're also going to be talking about the PlayStation 5 sales, as it looks like it's continued to sell faster than the PlayStation 4. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below and ring that notification bell so you can keep up to date with all the uploads here on the channel. And we're going to start today with PlayStation Plus for the month of August, because this was a strange one. They appear to have just shown up on Sony's website a bit early. We can actually take a look here at a screenshot that was captured. This was posted over on PlayStationLifestyle.net, and we can see at the top, coming to PlayStation Plus in August 2021, 3 games, and they'll be available for all PlayStation Plus members from August 3rd. Now, they do have one game specifically, it seems, that's set up for PlayStation 5, whereas the other 2 will also be available on the PlayStation 4. Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville, Tennis World Tour 2, and then for the PS5 only title, that's Hunter's Arena Legends. And I believe that one is just launching into PlayStation Plus, something we have seen Sony do more and more since the PS5 came out with PlayStation Plus. Think of like Oddworld, for example, or I guess Destruction All-Stars even. But Hunter's Arena is like a battle royale style game. I think it's like 30 people in an arena, like free-for-all. And while I'm looking at like Tennis World Tour 2, and it's like, it's kind of cool, I guess, or Plants vs. Zombies Battle for Neighborville, it's certainly one of the weaker PlayStation Plus offerings we've seen. I know it is better, certainly, than what we've seen with like Games for Gold, but Sony has been continuing to improve their offerings for PlayStation Plus, so this one, I understand why people might be a bit disappointed as to what's being offered here, but still not bad considering it comes with your subscription service, and for the most part, the past several months have been pretty good. Also, it looks like Bandai Namco is running a pretty good sale over on the eShop, and we'll just go over some of the titles here. We actually have a list from Nintendo Everything to make things a bit easier, and we can just kind of zoom in and kind of scroll through them as we take a look. And I did notice immediately we have things like Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth at $19.99. A lot of these games are like anywhere from 70 to 80% off, even like God Eater 3 is down to $12. Dragon Ball FighterZ is like always on sale. That one's $9. Jump Force, Deluxe Edition, not bad, $25. It's Fighting Game Nominee of the Year, of course. Then we have Katamari Damacy Reroll at $7.50. And if we scroll down a little further, Ni no Kuni is $10. Always a good pickup there for that game. And you also have the Sword Art Online games that are marked down quite heavily. In fact, $20 would get you both of them combined there. And Tales of Vesperia Definitive Edition at $12.49. These will all be on sale until July 29th. Just wanted to give you a bit of a heads up on some pretty good cheap Switch titles. Oh, and we had talked previously about how PlayStation Home had its trademark renewed, and it looks like it happened again, another update for PlayStation Home. In fact, someone on Reddit is just tracking this because people are starting to become more and more convinced that something is going on here. I mean, you could see the trademark filing that's being tracked over on Reddit, and yeah, it looks like Sony is kind of following up their previous update. In fact, I believe this is like the 3rd time I think they have done something with this trademark. Now, with trademarks, obviously, companies will just continue to update them to make sure that they retain the rights, but I kind of wonder if Sony is planning a return for PlayStation Home with the PlayStation VR 2, because like we see like VR chat as an example. Maybe Sony's thinking, wow, it'd be pretty cool to bring some sort of like social offering in for the next iteration of the PlayStation VR, and it'd be kind of interesting to see what they can do now after maybe learning a bit more of what happened with PlayStation Home originally. We'll just have to see, I guess, as we head into 2022 if they have any plans for it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Valve Steam Deck. Now, after it was announced, it's become pretty popular online. In fact, it looks like orders in general have pushed back their delivery estimates into like 3rd quarter of 2022. So it does appear that Valve is taking quite a few reservations on this system, and it is just through Steam currently in the website they've set up. It's not like in stores or anything yet, but so far so good, at least for the Steam Deck when it comes to sales. These are all $5 reservations, so I guess we'll see when the time comes to actually pay and get this thing shipped out and how all of that goes. But there was something that was brought up, and that has to do with the overall frame rate that is being targeted for the Steam Deck, and that came in apparently at 30 frames per second, sitting at its native resolution on that screen at 800p. And that didn't go over too well online, as obviously with PC gaming, you shoot for like the super high frame rates, play around with all of your different settings and everything to make sure you can get there. But we did have a response from Valve, and we can see over on Twitter, this is from Pierre, who has been making the rounds with the Valve Steam Deck with IGN, but they say the 30 FPS target refers to the floor of what we consider playable in our performance testing. Games we've tested and shown have consistently met and exceeded that bar so far. There will also be an optional built-in FPS limiter to fine-tune performance versus battery life. And this is very important to note because the Steam Deck is, as they said, a PC. You can play around with the settings yourself and kind of choose how you want to play your games. So the idea of saying, 30 FPS is what we're targeting alongside of the 800p resolution, in their mind, that's the floor. Like, we don't want games to run less than 30. Most of these games, I have a feeling at that 720p, 800p resolution somewhere in there, depending on the game, is probably above 30 frames per second, as is being mentioned here. And obviously, you could turn the settings down if you want. You can go to like low settings. You could probably turn shadows off. All kinds of things if you want to hit the 60 FPS or 60 hertz that we have on that screen. Now, they did also talk about a frame limiter here in order to kind of, I guess, maximize battery life. And that's not a bad idea, considering some games may be kind of all over the place, say in the mid 40 FPS, somewhere in there. And that could end up being kind of juddery and it won't look the smoothest. But if you just say, you know what, I'm fine with this game being 30 FPS. Maybe it's like an RPG, or you're just not someone who cares as much about a super high frame rate. You can just cap it at 30, and as they say here, you probably see better battery life, because remember, that is something that has to be taken into account. I'm sure you could overclock this thing, do all kinds of stuff, but then what kind of battery life are you getting? Are we getting below an hour of battery? Because then that does start sounding like the Game Gear. Really, it just comes down to this is a PC, so you'll have quite a bit of freedom as to how you want to play these games. Not necessarily like what we see with consoles, for example, where generally you're locked in. Maybe you have a resolution or favorite performance kind of toggle, but you'll be able to do quite a bit here with these different PC games on the Steam Deck. But what about the Switch? Because Valve did talk a bit about the comparisons that were being drawn. We can head over here to Nintendo Life, where it says, we tried to make all the decisions really in Steam Deck that targeted that audience and that served the customers that were already having a good time interacting with the games that are on that platform, on our platform. That really was how we were making our decisions. We ended up with a device that cosmetically shares some traits with the Switch, but that just was, it's kind of an artifact of how we've proceeded down the design direction. They go on further to say, so I think Nintendo does a great job targeting the audience they do with the content that they have, and that's going to be different. Like when you pick this Steam Deck up, it feels much more like ergonomics for somebody who's used to playing with an expensive game controller, right? Because it's bigger and it's bulkier than a Switch, and if we're right, that's the right trade-off to be making for the audience that we're going after. Let me put it this way, if you're a gamer and you pick up a Switch and you pick up one of these, you're going to know which one is right for you, right? And you're going to know it within 10 seconds. So this is kind of a strange statement, I guess. I mean, if you look at the Steam Deck versus the Switch, yes, the Steam Deck is much larger, and it kind of has to be with some of the technology they're putting into it. And I feel like we'll know more, obviously, when there is a teardown for it. But the Switch is mostly designed around Nintendo's games and taking advantage of the concept that they introduced with that hybrid model, but also with the Joy-Cons and be able to kind of pass one off and do the different co-op games as well. The Steam Deck appears to be a much more personal experience, and they even mentioned, it's going to be kind of like picking it up, and it's a premium product feeling compared to something like the Switch. Is at least seems to be the comparison they're drawing here, but I don't know. The Steam Deck doesn't necessarily look premium as much to me. Like, it doesn't look like this super high-end device necessarily. It looks just like a bulkier Switch without the Joy-Cons. And the fact that you would have to pick it up to know which one is right for you is also kind of strange, because, like, you're not really going to go anywhere and try it out before you buy it, at least not yet. Maybe in the future, but as of now, we're all just kind of reserving and hoping that the thing comes out of the other end with the factory in acceptable condition compared to what we've had with some of Valve's other projects like, the Steam Machine. But either way, I'm excited for the Steam Deck, looking forward to hopefully getting mine at the end of this year, but with my luck, it'll probably be beginning of next year. Either way though, we'll check it out, we'll run some tests on it, and yes, we'll even break it down and see how Valve put this thing together. Next up, let's talk about a Switch game that appears to have leaked a bit early from an online retailer, and this one isn't too surprising to me, and I was kind of expecting it to eventually go over. It's kind of late, like it's years later, but I guess it is at least showing up on the Switch to complete what is basically the trilogy, or I guess there's 4 games technically now with Genesis, but let's take a look here. That's right, it is Darksiders 3. Now this appeared on a Russian online store called videoigr.net. It does include the Crucible and Keepers of the Void DLC. It does appear to have a release date of September 30th on the website itself, but that could just be a placeholder date, so I wouldn't put too much stock into that one. However, I would look more towards like a fall release, I guess we'll call it. Now, Darksiders 3 came out in 2018, and I enjoyed playing it on the Xbox. You play as Fury, and you're going after the 7 deadly sins, and it is built on Unreal Engine 4, so it does make sense that it would eventually make the jump to the Switch. And this is a retail listing, so it's not necessarily confirmed, but I wouldn't be shocked if this was showing up on the Switch. In fact, Dying Light, I would say, is more shocking than this going to the Switch. And it's good to see. Like I said, we have Darksiders 1, 2, and Genesis already on the Switch, so you might as well complete the whole set and bring 3 over, and I think it's still worth checking out. We're gonna see what the pricing situation is around it. The fact that it's coming with the DLC packed in makes me believe they're gonna shoot for a higher price around this one, so again, we'll see about that. But people have been wondering, because Dying Light leaked out a bit early, and now we see Darksiders 3, a couple of third-party titles here. Is there some sort of event coming up here for Nintendo? I know we just got done E3, but I mean, that's how it works, right? Like, a Nintendo Direct ends, and then people go, when's the next Nintendo Direct? It happens all the time, so I wouldn't be shocked to hear about a partner showcase or something like that, maybe a month or so away, but these are obviously things that could just be announced on Twitter and then just kind of move along from there. So if that happens, again, wouldn't be too surprised, but I also wouldn't be shocked to see a partner showcase or something happen, maybe towards the fall, definitely ahead of like a September 30th release as to what's on this website here. That, Dying Light, maybe a few other things rolled in, but it'd be interesting to see Darksiders 3 on the Switch, certainly in portal mode, and see how it plays. Next up, let's talk about Halo Infinite, because I am just waiting to hear about when this game is releasing, because I mean, we're almost into August, and this game's supposed to be coming out this year, but we do have some good news here. It looks like we are just about ready to see the first, like, technical preview happen, where essentially they're gonna be testing the game out with a ton of people coming in through the Halo Insider program, which you're going to want to go sign up for if you want to just try out Halo Infinite, because it sounds like they're going to be running several of these tests leading up to launch. But we can head over here. This was posted up on VGC, and there's also the Halo Waypoint blog where they posted up a lot of this info, as well as how you can sign up and some high-resolution images of the different maps that we're going to be talking about. So we'll check those out as well as we go over this. But according to VGC, Halo Infinite's first technical preview could take place as soon as next weekend. Developer 343 Industries has said. They go on further to say the Bot Arena playlist puts 4 players against 4 bots on arena maps. For the first technical preview, Bot Arena will feature Slayer across 3 maps in this build. We have Bazaar, Recharge, and Live Fire. This quoted from 343 is saying, we've been given the okay to say our first bot-focused technical preview could happen as soon as next weekend. Prior to the flight starting, we're planning a live stream where we'll dive into the actual build and walk through nearly every facet of the technical preview. Stay tuned. We'll be hosting hundreds of thousands of Halo Insiders during the first technical preview, and then, if all goes well, we'll invite even more eligible Halo Insiders for the next flight. And they do mention they're going to be looking for like a wide range of systems for PC and different configurations there with video cards and processors, but also consoles, because remember, this is going to the Xbox One as well as the Xbox Series system, so they're gonna have to go all the way back to the Xbox One VCR, which is Nate's time to shine there, and also like the Xbox One S, the X, then the Series S, and the Series X. So certainly sign up and let them know what platform you'd have available. And I guess if all goes well, they'd pick you and you can try this out. I assume they're going to be working with bots just so they can kind of have a more controlled environment here and have 4 players on the same team and just kind of see how things go there. And they can kind of test out the AI they have designed here for these different bots. So exciting stuff, mostly because I hope this means we are working towards the release date for Halo Infinite. Again, it's supposed to be coming out this holiday, and well, we're kind of running out of time here. We know Forza Horizon 5 is coming out in November, and I kind of thought they'd want to try to get Halo Infinite into like September or October. I'm starting to think it's less likely that it'll show up in September, so I don't know if they want to run up against Forza Horizon 5 with another release from Microsoft. I figured they want to space them out at least a little bit, but again, they also have to find out when Call of Duty is coming, you know, so they don't want to crowd that up. So a lot of stuff to kind of be mindful of here. I'm just happy to hear that we are at least working towards a technical preview and then hopefully the launch of the game. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about the PlayStation 5 and some of the estimated sales totals that are being put out there right now, because it looks like the PS5 would have crossed a pretty serious milestone for a system that you never see in stores or even really in stock online, and is still like $800 to $1,000 on eBay. Now, we are going to be using VG Charts here as a source, and I'm on VG Charts because they typically will just do a lot of estimation. But remember, we are going to find out a bit more information from Sony next week on August 4th, I believe, is when they'll be releasing their quarterly earnings for their first quarter, and they'd probably give us some more insight as to how PlayStation has done up to this point. But we can have here to VG Charts, where they do say the PlayStation 5 sold an estimated 235,907 units to bring its lifetime sales to 10.01 million units. You can kind of see why I'm like on VG Charts, because they say estimated, but then they go down to like the single unit with like 907 units. But either way, the big news here is that it would have crossed 10 million units, and this is faster than the PlayStation 4. They say it has taken the PS5 35 weeks to sell 10 million units, while it took the PS4 39 weeks to reach the same milestone, which means the PS5 did it a month faster than the PS4. And if you remember, the PlayStation 4 is very popular when it released. For like the entire first year, that was still pretty hard to find. And I know we're still working through the PS5 with its supply issues, but I mean, Sony's producing more PS5s than they did with the PS4. It's just demand is that high for this platform. And we see Microsoft still selling the Xbox Series S and X pretty well. And the Series S seems to be starting to come into stock in stores a bit better, whereas the Series X is still something I don't see in stores at all. So I'm wondering what happens when the supply really starts to catch up and we get these chip shortages figured out. How much more can they produce then on top of that? And what's this demand really look like for the PS5? Like right now, if Sony could just produce as many PS5s as they want, if they could produce 30 million PS5s in a year, would they still cap that out with the demand? I mean, they might. Like, that's how high in demand the PS5 is right now. So again, we'll look towards next week when they have a report for investors, and do talk about PlayStation because it's like their biggest pillar when it comes to their business and generating revenue, and see if they have anything to say about how production's going and where they are with their sales. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday where I asked, are you currently playing Final Fantasy XIV? 4% said yes, I've been playing it since the beginning. 5% said yes, I started recently, and 11% said no, I have before but stopped playing. 80% said no, I've never really tried it. And all I'm seeing on Twitter right now and other places is a lot of people just playing Final Fantasy XIV. It seems to have just grown in popularity, especially recently. I know they do have a new expansion coming out towards the end of this year, and that's generating hype, and they did the kind of the free-to-play option just to try to get people on board, and they're even running out of digital copies of the game because the servers are just getting overloaded. So I was a little surprised to see 80% of people saying, no, I've never tried it, because that just tells me that Square still has a ton of people that could find their way into this game. I don't know if it's flipped World of Warcraft yet in terms of popularity or player count, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it do that if it hasn't yet. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Guy saying, in regards to the comment of the day, Nintendo gets lazy after being successful. This goes for all companies. See PS2 to PS3, 360 to Xbox One, DS to 3DS. And I mean, yeah, you can look at that whole list there and basically explain what happened. I mean, the PS2 was super popular. Sony said, throw everything we can at a system and we'll sell it for $600 in 2006. And I think they even went on record to say you can get a second job if you need more money to pay for this. The 360, the Xbox One was, yes, Microsoft being overconfident with what they were able to do when it came to ownership of games and DRM and even putting a camera inside the system, and charging $100 more than the more powerful PlayStation 4. So yeah, Sony just ran over the Xbox One with the PS4. I must wonder if the Xbox One was the same price as the PS4 without the camera, how things would have been then, but I guess we'll never know there. And then with the 3DS, Nintendo just priced it incorrectly and thought they could get something like $250 for that system. Obviously they couldn't. They had to price cut it and all of this ambassadors program. So yes, typically when a system does well before and then they go to a new system, a lot of overconfidence goes into it. But the Switch is weird because Nintendo wasn't successful really with the Wii U when it came to overall user base. They've just become more and more successful as the Switch has gone on, and I kind of think they may just feel like they need to be safe and conservative when it comes to the system and the platform and try not to rock the boat too much, which unfortunately means that I think they're leaving a lot on the table when it comes to a Netflix-like service with a lot of their past retro titles that could actually be something really big for not only the Switch, but just Nintendo in general. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. Where's Valve's comments around the 30 FPS situation on the Steam Deck and their comparisons and their comments on the Switch. Also, what about Darksiders 3 potentially going to the Switch here soon? And then PlayStation 5 sales. It does appear that Sony is producing more PS5s than the PS4, but can they catch up with demand anytime soon? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.